Alright guys, today we're going to talk about our squat series. Our squat series involves our air squat, our front squat, our overhead squat. The series is also going to include the setup, some points of performance, some faults, and some common cues that we can give our athletes as coaches every day. Now, regarding our setup for our air squat, okay, a couple things. We're going to stand nice and tall, maintain a nice neutral spine. Our stance is going to have our feet about hips width apart with our toes forward. Then when we squat down, we're going to go ahead and drive those knees out. Weight's going to remain in the heels, and we're going to stand back up into a fully extended. Our points of performance are somewhat similar to our setup. Okay, we're going to go ahead, maintain a nice lumbar curve. We're going to make sure that our weight remains in our heels, and that we reach depth in our squat. Now we're going to talk about some common faults and cues for us as coaches for our athletes. Okay, first one's going to be a loss of lumbar curve. Okay, easy fix to that is have your athlete put their arms up when they squat down. So when they squat down, they're maintaining that lumbar curve. Our next one is going to be weight shifting forward into the toes as we squat down. Okay, and the heels coming up off the ground. Easy fix for that is going to go ahead and have your athlete do what's called floating their toes, or simply curl their toes up in their shoes as they squat down, which is going to force weight to the heels. Next fault we're going to see could be not reaching depth in their squat or hips not going below parallel. Now an easy fix for that as a coach is give your athlete a target to squat to, say a small box or a wall ball. Okay? They're going to squat down to that, maintaining that lumbar curve, weight in the heels, and their butt's going to touch that target below parallel. It's going to tell them that they've reached their depth and they can stand back up. Eventually you can remove that target as the athlete becomes more comfortable and more aware of depth. Next fault we may see is knees caving in. So as the athlete squats down, the knees cave in instead of track out. Easy fix for that, simply have your athlete drive their knees out. Tell them, drive your knees out. And if that doesn't click for your athlete, you go ahead and take your hand, place it on the outside of the knee, and as the athlete squats down, tell them to press out against your knee. Again, it gives the athlete a physical contact point in which they become aware of what they're doing. Next we may see is known as the train wreck squat. Now that train wreck squat is going to be a loss of lumbar curve. It's going to be weight shifting forward, heels off the ground. It's going to be knees caving in. All of those things. This is going to require some squat therapy. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take all of our cues, put them into one, because this is kind of that squat where it has all those faults. Give the athlete a target close to a wall, say a box. Get their stance set up, feet hips width apart, toes forward, heels against that box. Have them sit down, driving their knees out, putting their arms up as they squat down nice and slow, nice and controlled until they reach that target. We're going to do this repeatedly over and over again until the athlete becomes fully aware of their body and their movements. Okay? Lastly, we may see is what's called the immature squat. Now the immature squat, it may have weight in the heels, knees driving out, okay, a nice lumbar curve, but what happens is the athlete shifts the weight forward by somewhat dropping their chest, and when they shift their weight forward, even though their heels stay down, that weight is now pushed to the front of the quads, so as they squat down, they begin to kind of fold in half, like so. Again, pushing that weight to the front of the quads instead of having that backside do the work. Okay? Easy fix for that again, some squat therapy. Again, have that athlete move up to a wall like we just talked about, give them a target to squat to, make sure everything is nice, slow, and controlled until that athlete becomes aware of their movements and can correct it on their own. Next in our squat series is we're going to talk about our front squat. Now our front squat setup, points, performance are going to be the same as our air squat, which we went over previously. We're going to add in a couple things. We're going to add in a proper rack position, which means that elbow resting across the top of the chest or the shoulders, like so. All right? And we're going to add in driving our elbows up or keeping our elbows up as our athletes squat down. Now, a couple faults that we may see, okay, is that improper rack position. You can always just tell your athlete, hey, get that bar up, which we mean by placing across the chest here, or if that doesn't help, we can allow that athlete or show that athlete to let that barbell roll into the fingertips which is gonna force that barbell across the tops of the shoulders, the chest there as they squat. Now, another common fault we're gonna see is our athletes' elbows dropping down as we squat down. Okay? Pretty common fix to that, or a pretty easy fix to that is gonna be telling your athlete, drive your elbows up as they squat down. Now, if that verbal cue doesn't work, a nice tactile cue you could use is go ahead and place the hand on the athlete's elbow, okay, as they squat down. Just go ahead and drive their elbows up a little bit, nice and easy. Just give them a nice tactile cue to let them know this is where their elbows need to be as they squat down. All right, guys, next we're gonna go over our overhead squat. The points of performance in our setup are gonna be the same as we previously went over in our front squat and our air squat. Now we're gonna add in a couple things. Now that we have a barbell up overhead with a wide grip, okay, and we're gonna squat that down, we're gonna want a couple things. We're gonna want that bar to remain overhead in that frontal plane. We're gonna want to maintain active shoulders with locked out elbows. Some common faults that we're gonna see with this overhead squat are gonna be those shoulders don't remain active in the squat. They come forward a little bit. We get droopy or lazy shoulders and elbows. Okay, a couple things we can have our athletes do. We can simply tell our athlete to press up on that bar as they squat down. Okay, and if that doesn't work, you can always use that tactile cue. Place your arms, your hands under the athlete's elbows to press up, make sure they're locked out. You can even kind of grab the shoulder and rotate that into place so that you can show them what you mean by active shoulders as they squat down. Another common fault we're gonna see is that barbell comes forward as they squat down. Common cue or fix as a coach for our athlete is during this fault is we're gonna have our athlete press up on that bar and tell them to maybe slightly pull it back just a little bit so that bar remains up overhead in that frontal plane as we squat down. All right, guys, this has been our squat series. We've gone over our air squat, our front squat, our overhead squat, their setups, points of performance, and some common faults and cues or fixes that we can give our athletes as coaches to help make sure that everyone's squatting properly and safely throughout their workouts. Thanks, guys.